Tech fans, what's going on, guys? So I know it's been like over a month since I did a video, and I apologize for not bringing back baseball banter, but it is what it is. I couldn't find someone to co-host with me, and I didn't want to do a podcast style thing with only just me on here talking because I thought it was really stupid. But the Tigers made a lot of, well, I guess not a lot, but a couple of substantial moves and some signings have happened. So first things first, let's start with the Tucker Barnhart trade. So the Tigers traded Nick Quintana to the Cincinnati Reds for Tucker Barnhart. Now, I really like this deal for the Tigers for a couple of reasons. First off, Jake Rogers is gone all next year with Tommy John surgery. So they were going to need an everyday or close to an everyday starter that is good defensively. Because let's be honest here, Eric Haas behind the dish isn't really what you would call a defensive stalwart back there. On top of Dustin Garneau, although he did hit last year with the Tigers, he isn't someone that you're going to rely on to do what he did, especially what he showed power-wise in the limited games that the Tigers had him all season long. There's a reason why this guy hasn't really stuck in the major leagues, as an everyday catcher for really ever. He's actually a really good defensive catcher, and I like what he brought behind the plate, but I don't see him making it, as an everyday starter. Barnhart comes in, very good pitch framer, very good defensive catcher. He's not a guy that's been injured a whole bunch in his career and whatnot, so I really like the move. And Nick Quintana, the Tigers have so many young starters anyways down in the minor leagues, plus the guys we got up right now. I don't really see him how it really hurts the Tigers getting trading from depth, which is their starting pitching. So I really liked this for the Tigers. It allows the Tigers to put Haas behind the dish a couple days a week. That's if he can make it, because who knows what he's going to do next year. He came out of nowhere and had the kind of power surge that he had this past season, and who knows what he does next year. So at least with Barnhart, and that probably spells the end for Griner. He's sniffing a major league roster. He'll probably be in AAA. He could put Haas out in the outfield a couple days a week. The Barnhart signing, or the trading, I should say, really, it's a benefit. It was a good deal, and the Tigers knew they needed a catcher. Al Avila said, they were going after a starter, and you look at the first day of the offseason, what do? They went after a starter, so it worked out well. Then you look at the Erod signing. So the Tigers went out and signed Eduardo Rodriguez for 5 years, $77 million. Now, at first, I was thinking about the signing, and I didn't really know what to make of it, because if you look at Erod's numbers, they're not really that pretty based off of regular old stats. But if you look at his advanced statistics, really Erod was really good last year. If you look at his fielding independent pitching, his ERA plus, his strikeout rate, he kind of, as BABIP, he kind of got unlucky last year. Now, he's been in the big leagues for a while, and he's had some decent years. But he's been kind of inconsistent. When the guy is good, he's really good. But when he's bad, he really slumps. He had that spell with COVID, and it cost him his 2020 season. Like I said, last year, his advanced statistics say he was better than his traditional counting stats say. But, Matt Boyd, might be on his way out with the Tigers, because the Tigers are linked to getting Steven Matz. They're looking to get one more veteran starter. So especially if they sign Steven Matz, that's definitely the end of it for Matt Boyd, because Spencer Turnbull is going to be out for the whole season because of Tommy John surgery, and Matt Boyd just can't stay healthy. And really, realistically, Matt Boyd had one good season with the Tigers, and that was the 2019 year when they lost 115 games. And it wasn't hard to be good on a staff that lost 115 games. Basically, you just had to show up. It was like Armando Galarraga in 2008, when that team was just complete dog shit. Justin Verlander was like 8-17 with his worst ERA of his career, and Kenny Rogers fell off the cliff, and you had Nate Robertson and Jeremy Bonderman, and they were hurt that season too, because I remember they had like Freddie Dolzy and Alfredo Figueroa. They were just a really bad rotation, and it wasn't hard for Matt Boyd to be good on a team that was as bad as the 2019 Tigers were. And now the last 2 years, it's just been constantly hurt. And I don't want to dog him too much because Boyd really did take a step forward from when the Tigers first got him from the Blue Jays. He was a fringe fourth, fifth starter because he always had a hard time getting lineups out multiple times. And then, over the last couple of years, his fastball played up a little bit. He developed a curveball changeup that had ability to get lefties and righties out, but he can't stay healthy. And he's had, especially when he came back from being injured, he couldn't throw consistent strikes either. That was a really bad thing for him, was throwing strike one. I was at the game in Cincinnati. It was a second start back, and he was absolutely terrible. So I think, if they go out, I think they're going to get one more veteran starter, and I think Matt Boyd's days as a Tiger is over, which Erod comes in. If he could come in and give you close to a 4 ERA, give you 160 innings, 170 innings, it is what it is. That's not bad. I mean, you'd like him to pitch closer to 200 innings, but in the days of inning limits and the Tigers bullpen being what it was this past year, they're going to pick and match their spots with Erod and not let him go 3 times through the order because of the 3 times through the order stuff, where teams don't let guys go 3 times through the order. And with how good the back end of the Tigers bullpen was last year with what they assembled with the 3 guys at the back, they're going to try to get Erod to throw 165, 180 innings as they hopefully ramp up Tarek Skubal in case he mises innings this upcoming year. And you'll know if what they did for Skubal and Mize this past year is going to apply to Matt Manning this forthcoming year if he makes it up in the big leagues for an entire season. There's no way the Tigers let him throw more than 150 innings in his first full big league season if he makes 30 starts for the Tigers this year. So Erod, a proven guy that can give you some innings. He does have his inconsistencies, but he's a lefty that has good stuff, good fastball, good slider. He's a guy that you could get 170 innings out of him. What those 170 innings may bring, I don't know, because he does have his inconsistencies. That is, like I said, the one thing about him. When he's good, he's good. He's got good stuff. Like when he pitched against the Astros. You've seen he's got good stuff, but when he's off, he can fall into slumps, and he's bad for an extended period of time. So I don't hate the signing. It is a lot of years. I just hope it doesn't turn into the Jordan Zimmermann signing, because right now, me as a Tigers fan, and I don't know how the general consensus of the fan base is, we just spent 5 years watching abysmal baseball. And now that they're starting to spend some money on this team and starting to invest in it because of, the amount of wins they put up last year that no one expected, with the clear improvements that Hinch and staff brought with, Riley Green and Torkelson on the horizon, who I think a lot of people are underrating how much they're going to provide the team next year for a boost. I'm just a little hesitant about giving out close to $100 million contracts because they spent so much time cleaning house and so much time getting their payroll back to where it needs to be. Yes, they need to spend 100% because, like I said, took a step forward. The Hinch factor, everything else, we all know this. It has many games they won this year. But at the same time, you don't want to go giving out big contracts to anyone, and then you have a Jordan Zimmermann part 2. Or, I wanted to touch on here in a second, giving a 10-year, $300 million deal to someone like Carlos Correa. Because you don't want to put yourself in a spot like the Tigers were in the mid-2000 teens, where they were trying to extend the window, and then you signed Jordan Zimmermann, and then you signed Justin Upton, and you were still paying on Prince Fielder's contract through, a few more years when he was retired out of baseball, and Miggy's contract still had so many years, and you signed V-Mart when he was 36 because you were trying to win a few more years. I just don't want the Tigers to be in that situation, again, where they sign someone who's really for $100 million for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they're hurt for the entirety of the time, and then you can't go out and find someone to replace them in that spot because you put them, you have them for so many years, and you can't move the contract, so it's just dead roster spots, which the Tigers had for quite a few years, and now they don't. They put this up in a spot. I hope that the contract works out. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. guys can give you some innings, but what are the quality of the innings going to be? Hopefully it's 30 starts with a sub-4 ERA. I would be good with that. 180 innings, I'd be totally fine with that. Let's just hope that he stays healthy and it doesn't turn out to be Jordan Zimmerman's contract. Because, like I said, they need to spend money because they won, the more games than anyone expected, and you can clearly see the development of the team taking a step forward, more so than anyone thought this year. And I don't think they should try to go from not even being a fringe wildcard team to competing for the division in one off season. I wouldn't be mad at next year where they're like, okay, let's let a few more of our young guys develop. Let's see what we get out of year 2 for Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal, and a full year of Matt Manning, and let Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson infiltrate up into the big league roster and see what we have here. Can we be a fringe playoff team, a fringe second wild card spot team? Then, if that's the case, then you spend like crazy because the gap between being the best in the division and, seeing what other teams do taking a step forward, like the Royals, White Sox, Twins, whatever, whatnot. Then I'm like, okay, fine. They won 85 games, 83 games. They were 2 games out of a final wild card spot. Let's go. Let's try to push to get those last 8-9 wins and go out and get someone good. But when you won 77 games and the gap between you and Chicago and even, Minnesota still got some talent on that team, and Cleveland, if they could ever get some offense with how good their pitching consistently is, it's still not that close, even though the Tigers and the Indians were very close in record-wise this past year. But the Indians also had a lot of injuries, and, they were still trying to replace Frankie Lindor, and they still have a lot of good young pitching. So it's like trying to go from winning 77 games to 91 by spending all this money on contracts when realistically the Tigers next year, I think if they win 85 games, that's another improvement in your fringe second wildcard team. That's good to me. But the fan base now, with these expectations of seeing 77 wins after seeing how many 60, 50 win seasons we had over the last 5 years, now they want to go from basically 0 to 100 real quick. But 05, 03 team to the 06 team, it was a 3-year span where they went from 119 to World Series. I don't know. I don't think this is quite that kind of turnaround. I don't know if we could be the 2019 Tigers where we lose 115, and then the 2022 team could be the 06 Tigers where they still didn't win the division, but they're a wild card team to make it to the World Series. I don't know. Because of, that 06 team was vastly different because it had more veteran guys and it wasn't nearly as many young dudes, and it was just like a lot of, dudes all clicking together at once because you had, Zamaya and Verlander, 2 rookie studs that came out of nowhere and just were amazing. And then you still had someone like Curtis Granderson, and Craig Monroe had a good year, and even that scrub fuck Brandon Inge had a good year that season. And you had the vets like Maglio and Guillen and Placido Polanco. So there was just like, it was a little bit more of a veteran-laden team with guys that have been there versus this 2022 team that's going to be more of young guys, and you're only going to have a couple of veteran dudes like Miggy and Erod that have been there, done that before. So, and I know Jamer's a vet now. He's been there. He's done that for a little while now too, so who knows. But my point is to go, you don't want to go out and be a team that, you're trying to go from 77 to 91 wins in one off season when you still don't know what the Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson effect's going to be. So it's like, I'm still leery about spending that kind of money when the gap in the division is still so great, because the White Sox are really, really, really good. And they might go out and get Marcus Semien, who knows? And that's going to make them still really, really good. And, their rotation's still really good. And their bullpen's still really good. And the Tigers, they're not quite there yet. So, I don't know. So, we're going to touch on that Correa stuff here in a second. Nico Goodrum, elected free agency. Bon voyage. I've been saying this since I came back, that I was extremely tired of Nico Goodrum. The guy gets hurt every single time he comes off the DL. There was, when he first came off the DL, I think they were in Minnesota, or they were playing Minnesota, and he came back and second game. No, because he got hurt against Baltimore in Camden, and then he came back and got hurt again in his second game back at Comerica Park. He can't stay healthy. The guy thinks he's an everyday shortstop, but he's not. I don't care where he finished in Gold Glove finals voting in 2019. He can't stay healthy. He's not a good shortstop. He can't even make the throw from short to first base consistently. I've never seen someone struggle to throw the ball from short as much as him. So shortstop does remain a glaring hole. And the Tigers are in a crappy situation because Harold Castro last year, especially in the last month and a half, he hit well enough to get a look. Willie Castro, I don't know what they're going to do with because he's kind of a pesky guy, but I don't think he's got enough stick to play every single day. And then you put him at second base, and he looks lost out there when they had him at second. But, they need more of a bat if he's going to play every day at short. And Harold did really well, when he was getting more everyday reps. And by far their best shortstop defensively is Zach Short. But Zach Short is so... I think if you listen to the Compound podcast, he even said this year he was lost when he first got up to the big leagues by pitching. I think he's so overwhelmed by big league pitching, and he's still trying to even figure out how to be an everyday big leaguer that, I just don't know if he's ever going to be anything but a utility infielder. He already said on the podcast that he's going to try playing second base this offseason because he thinks the Tigers are going to go out and get a shortstop, which makes sense because they need a shortstop. Now, Harold Castro, like I said, he was really good in the last month and a half of the season, but we've also seen a lot of Harold Castro where he's really bad. He's a pesky little hitter, and he's got great bat-to-ball skills, but I don't know if he's an everyday guy. What the Tigers really need is someone that's going to come in there and solidify that position. And it's a position, like I was just saying about spending money, how I'm leery about it, but if it's a spot that you're going to spend money, this is a spot you need to spend some money because you already seen what you got on the farm. You already know you got Harold and Willie and Zach Short. And they got Ryan Kreidler in the minor leagues too, who was, really good last year. Out of Torkelson and Riley Green, Ryan Kreidler was better than Torkelson when he got to AAA, and I think he had super similar numbers to Riley Green. Kreidler ripped it up with the Mud Hens. But you won 77 games last year. You took a massive step forward compared to what you were the last 5 years. Do you want to wait and give Ryan Kreidler, who's not like a Riley Green and a Spencer Torkelson kind of prospect, do you want to give Ryan Kreidler a full year and try yet another shortstop, give this guy developmental time, and put him in a spot where you don't know if he's going to succeed to try to save money versus going out and signing someone that's a proven guy that's going to come in and fill your need? That is the big question because Kreidler defensively is a stud. Every single podcast I've listened to, there's one called The Road to Detroit, everyone consistently says the same thing. Ryan Kreidler's glove could play in the big leagues right now. That's how good he is defensively. But do the Tigers want to wait another year, give another unproven rookie all these ABs, all these games, and the slumps he's going to have? The stick has always been the biggest question with Kreidler, but past year, he hit really well. Do you want to try to save money to give yourself an opportunity to let another one of your rookies come up and have ABs? Because for all we know, I remember listening to Pat Caputo rave about Willie Castro is one of the best shortstops in the Indians' farm system. I'm surprised they traded Leonis Martin for him. I heard that fucking retard talk about how good Willie Castro's going to be, and he came up in the big leagues and can't hit. If I can't hit. So it's like, he could be that. Or, he could take 3 years before he hits his potential and he's a stud. You don't know. But the Tigers already started the clocks on Mize, Manning, Skubal. This year, Riley Green for sure is going to have his clock started. And hopefully Tarek Skubal, because if he's up in the big leagues, that means he's doing good. But he's got his clock started. So they want to give another guy who's not of the echelon of prospects as those two an opportunity to, play games at the big league level. Which brings me to the point of Carlos Correa. So I really like Carlos Correa, but the fact that he wants 10 years, it's no lower than what Francisco Lindor got. I don't know. Because Correa has a lot of injury history. He's a stud. He would solve your defensive issues like that. He's a platinum Gold Glove winner. But his injury history I think his personality, I don't think it would really affect the Tigers because I think he's one of those guys you hate him if you don't play with him, but you love him if you do play with him. And I think with, Miggy's Latin influence and everything else, I think it would be great. But that kind of money, after the Tigers are almost done with Miggy's monstrosity, Correa would only be 36 when the contract ends, so it's not going to be like how Miggy is 40 when the contract's done, or 41. But do you want to spend that kind of money when the division gap is still like this? When you weren't even close to a wild card spot, and when you're not even with Correa, you're still not as good as the White Sox. You might be better than Cleveland. Because don't sleep on the Royals and what they got. With Bobby Witt Jr. knocking on the door, and they saw Whit Merrifield and Mondesi. They have some guys coming up. The Royals aren't as bad as people want to think. So do you go out and spend that kind of money on a guy who's going to solve your issues, but you're still not that close to being the best in the division? It's kind of a quandary. Now, me, personally, I wouldn't do it because yes, he's going to be way younger than Miggy when the contract's up, but it's so many years. And he's going to want a full no trade because he's going to want to collect all that money. That's the one thing I like about the Erod contract. There's an opt-out after 2 years. So if he pitches extremely well, he's going to bounce. So it's okay. A lot of people don't like opt-outs because the players can cash in again, but I don't mind opt-outs because by the time they're ready for opt-out after 2-3 years, they've added 2-3 years more of age, and most of the time those dudes are trying to cash in at 32, 31, and someone else can have them for those years. I'll gladly take them back into their 20s for year 30, and someone else could have it. But Carlos Correa isn't going to want that. He's going to want full trade, no opt-outs. He's going to want to be in it to win it because he's going to want to collect on it. I don't know. I would rather go with Trevor Story any day of the week because Trevor Story is a great defender. He's a really good hitter. And I think he's every bit of the player Carlos Correa is at a third of the cost. For some reason, MLB Trade Rumors is really shitting on his value. I would take Trevor Story any day of the week. I would take Corey Seager any day of the week. Now, I know Corey Seager had Tommy John surgery, but you get a lefty in that lineup that could hit some, with some pop. I would love Corey Seager, and he's a good shortstop. Trey Turner's out there. Marcus Simeon's out there. Now, I wouldn't really want Marcus Simeon because of his age and the money he's going to want. And then, you got a home run hitter in a park that's not good for home runs. That's why I wouldn't want Javi Baez. People are like, well, yeah, Javi Baez. Javi Baez strikes out 37% of his at-bats. No thanks. And you got a guy who's a home run hitter, and you're putting him in a ballpark that is not good for home run hitters. The best hitters for Comerica Park are guys that hit the ball in the gaps, not the guys that put the ball in the seats. You look at the guy who led the league in doubles, or American League in doubles, was Jimmy Candelaria. Why? Because he puts the ball in the gaps, and he plays at a big ballpark. He's very good at putting it in the triangle out and right and hitting the gaps out by the opposing team's bullpen. That's Jamer's strengths. That's why I don't think he's ever going to hit 25 home runs, because he's a gap hitter. And that's the kind of hitter that needs to be at Comerica Park. If you put a guy that's Adam Dunn, who's just trying to put the ball in the ballpark every single time, like Javi Baez would do, or Marcus Semien being a dead pole hitter, I don't like that at Comerica Park. I'd rather have guys that hit 17 home runs, 15 home runs, but hit 50 doubles. because you're going to get more out of him than a guy that his average is going to fall because he's hitting more, because he's a fly ball hitter hitting home runs. And a lot of those balls that would be home runs at the prior ballpark that the Comerica Park Power Alleys suck up are just going to be lower average for them, less times on base and less productivity. I'd rather have a guy that hits the ball, is not quite a fly ball hitter, but more of a line drive doubles guy, because you're going to get way more out of that at Comerica Park versus someone who's trying to put the ball in the seats. So that's why I wouldn't want Javi Baez. All the strikeouts, too much of a home run hitter, fly ball hitter at a park that doesn't yield home runs. The same thing with Marcus Semien. But I would not sign Correa. I would take Trevor Story, Turner, or Seager any day of the week over those guys, because it's going to be less years, less money, and these guys, they're not going to hurt you. It's not like, oh, man, I got to have Trevor Story over Carlos Correa. This sucks. He blows. No, Trevor Story is a fucking stud. He is an outstanding hitter. And he would come in and he would fix your shortstop problem for probably 4 less years than what Carlos Correa is going to want for less money. And I would 100,000,000% do that over getting Carlos Correa, someone that's going to come in, big personality, and he gets hurt, and then the contract, you got him for 10 years, and it's an abomination. You don't get anything out of it. There's a reason why teams are putting all these hot dots in all these contracts, and players aren't signing 15, 10, 12-year deals anymore, because they don't work. Give me 6 years, $180 million. I'll happily take Trevor Story for that. Happily. I'll give him 6 years, $200 million. Happily give Trevor Story that, because he's a fucking stud. And he's a really good player. And you will have him for less years, less time. Rather give him more AAV and less years than more years and a little less AAV. That's just me. So that's all I got for you guys this week. If I missed anything, leave it in the comments. I'll be back sometime in the next few weeks or so. After the holidays, it's been kind of a weird spot for me because I'm in the midst of some changes and whatnot. But I'll be back to discuss any more news. Like if the Tigers, for some fucking reason, do sign Carlos Correa, I'll be on here to give my thoughts on it and what it means for the Tigers. Hopefully they sign Trevor Story or Seager or Turner. I'd be really good with that too. But I wanted to come on here and at least touch about what had happened with the team and where they sit right now. So that's all I got for you guys today. Have a good one. Go Tigers. I'll be back.